What makes a good dog trainer a great dog trainer? Well, today I sit down with my longtime mentor and training genius, Pat Stuart. This episode serves as a deep dive into the dog training industry. And so if you're serious about training dogs, dog behavior, or just the industry as a whole, I guarantee this episode will fill gaps in your knowledge that you didn't even know you had. Enjoy. How's this week looked for you, Pat Stuart?
Mate, it's been busy. Lots of dogs, lots of filming, lots of editing, lots of getting obsessed and watching UFO videos. That's about my life these days.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you like a bit of that, don't you?
I'm obsessed at the moment.
Yes.
I give myself an hour a day. That's it. And I try to cap that to 45 minutes, but if I need a little bit more, I extend it to an hour.
I watched one on Amazon the other day.
Any good?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like,
Captivating.
maybe, yeah, the spark is there.
Oh yeah, but what the algorithm will get you once you watch a couple of videos.
Yeah.
That's all your feed's going to be, and then it buries deep in your head.
Got me.
I protect my feed a fair bit, like I don't open anything. When people send me stuff on Instagram, I never open any of it because I'm like, nope, I don't want to send any signals to the algorithm that I want to see that. I don't know what I'm opening from you. I'll just stick with what I like. Thank you.
Yeah, because they learn pretty quick, and then before you know it.
Big rabbit holes.
How's the transition from doing more online stuff now then, Pat, to in person?
Mate, it's I'm still doing a decent mix of it, right? So like I have a lot of people that come in and see me and we work on, things as we progress, but I've been able to maintain a fair amount of the online stuff. So like I'd say at the moment I'm probably 50-50. It's I don't mind it. It's a good mix. I like the idea of being able to offer value to people, other places in the world, people that can't come in here. I think there's a lot of people who have an interest in learning, cool stuff about training dogs, but they're either, geographically don't have access to anyone, and financially as well, and, like it's not that you don't charge for online, but it's different, like it takes a different portion of your time. You can review videos differently than having people come in and show you stuff. So I like it. I've been doing online stuff. I think I started in about 2018 or something like that. And it's sort of, fluctuated up and down, done more and less at different times. I did a big presentation this week for the US Army and it was tough, right? So like it was 2 hours I had to speak on. They wanted me to speak on drive capping and leaking. And I kind of wanted to speak on negative reinforcement versus punishment. So I sort of did both. Like I talked about drive capping and leaking through that lens, like how to fix it, how to avoid it, and then how to fix it. But I couldn't see anybody in the room, right? Because they're all these dog handlers in this big conference room, like a big standard military, huge room. So I'm up on the screen and the only view I have is like this terrible, like oblique angle from the back corner of the room. So I don't know how it's taken. I don't know if anybody even paid attention. No one was moving. At one point I thought, oh no, like the camera could be frozen. I wouldn't have any idea. And I was the last speaker of the day. So it's first thing in the morning for me. I'm down here in my shop, 9 a.m., bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. But to them, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm sure they just want this Australian guy to shut up so they can go home. So like that's the thing of online, right? Like in person, you can make a connection, you can be there, you can definitely get a read on the dog, you can get a better idea of how things are landing with the person. They're less distracted because they're actually in with you. But that online piece, like you're making a lot of guesses. There's a lot of assumptions in online dog training, and you go with the flow. You'd never know that you're actually getting it right. You can't see and feel and smell and interact with the dog, and it's hard to know that the person is actually taking on what you're putting out there. But it's good, it gives you access to other people. I enjoy doing it.
What do you get your kicks from? Like what motivates you to keep doing what you're doing? Is it teaching people? Is it working with the dogs? Is it your own dog?
That's a good question, man. I think the thing I enjoy most about what I do with dogs is that typically by the time somebody gets in touch with me, like a lot of people come to me early on to learn, and that's cool. I enjoy that. But one of the things I really enjoy is being able to problem solve with people. And one of the coolest things I get to do is work with people that I consider peers or, in many cases, better trainers than me. but I have, a reasonable skill set at sort of breaking things down and getting back all the way back to that first principles and really understanding, okay, let's together try and figure out why the dog is doing the thing that it's doing or not doing the thing, or how to, take the dog's point of view and understand it from that lens, and then, thinking that way, reverse engineer how we can have the dog understand the thing. And so, I really enjoy doing that. And that happens on various scales, like sometimes that is someone comes to me and, they're just really frustrated. They're new, they're frustrated. They can't read their dog well. They're in conflict with their dog. And sometimes you can get huge turnarounds because it's just that they're missing little pieces and stuff like that. And it can be easy, you can observe it and go, oh yeah, like I know what's going on here and we can change it. And then other times people are really good and they've already tried, I'll suggest, oh no, the fix will be this. And they're like, no, we've done that. And it's like, oh, okay. And then what about this? I know we've done that. And further we go. And I enjoy it, I think one of the cool things is when, I recently had someone come to me, it was online. They sent me an email with quite an interesting problem. So I was like, yeah, cool. Let's work on this together. And I thought, the first thing I say to people usually is just send me a video of you working your dog. And so they send me a video and I'm thinking they'll be terrible because of the things they've described, some of what I think is often a basic issue. They'll be a terrible handler. This will be an easy enough fix because I'll just give them some pointing on their handling and things will be fine. So I received the video and they're a great handler. And I was like, okay, this is interesting, right? So all the things that made me think this was going to be an easy fix, it's for sure not, because you're already doing all those things and not just doing them really well. So now it's like, okay, yep, you're definitely my client because we're going to have a lot of back and forth on this. We're going to figure this out. We're going to get to the bottom of why this is going on with the dog. And so that's the thing that kind of spins my dials. I enjoy that kind of work. And I think that's one of the coolest things is where people are often, dealing in sport and working dogs as much as I like to, often people get in conflict with their dogs because they want something from the dog, right? They've got a goal with the dog. Not like the average pet dog person just wants the dog to be awesome and follow them around and be cool. The type of people I'm dealing with, they want something specific from the dog. And often when that's not happening, they end up sort of resenting the dog and their whole interactions with the dog is unpleasant. They're in conflict with the dog. And when you can fix that, and often it's just, sometimes it can be simple because you're looking, from the outside in with fresh eyes and you're seeing things that they don't. Or it could be really complicated. It takes a long time to dig away at it and you're back and forth with the person a lot. But when you can sort of turn that around and create we fixed the problem, that's cool, right? The dog does the thing. The dog does the call off or does the change of position now or whatever it is that we're working on. A lot of the time then it's like, oh, okay, but now I like the dog again, right? And the people are they're connecting with the dog again. And now, whether they pass or fail their test or they make progress on their journey, whatever, they're back to enjoying the process with their dog. And that's a pretty cool thing to be a part of when you can be.
You're like a canine relationship counselor.
A little bit. People call you a dog whisperer. Do people ever say that to you? People in your life?
Yeah, all the time, but...
Yeah. Do you correct them and say, no, it's mostly yelling like I do?
Yeah.
There's no whispering. It's all yelling.
I have a question, or a couple of questions that's going to satiate my own curiosity. Guys, I just need a very quick 20 seconds of your time. Hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're a dog trainer, I've put together a free webinar for you on how to correctly scale your business. And so if you want access to that, you can either scan this clever little QR code here and pause if you're watching on your TV, or you can click the link in the description and have access to that webinar for completely free. It will help. It's helped hundreds of others scale their business, get them out of the shit, and so on and so forth. And hopefully it'll be as helpful for you as well. Enjoy the rest of the video. What's your typical demographic of person you're working with? What are they doing with their dog? What do they want to achieve?
Yeah, good question. So the majority of the people I work with they're either sport dog competitors across many sports. I'm a generalist, right? So I'm not especially good at anything. So I kind of know a little bit about everything. So I interact with people across many sports, or they're police or military handlers. And typically when they get in contact with me, it's because they are super into it and they're not getting the support or the information that they want from the people that they have available to them in person. So it's very often like a police dog handler that is part of a department that doesn't have a big dog department, and there's only 2 or 3 handlers, and the one guy's been there for 20 years and hasn't learned anything since he went to his handler school 20 years ago. So like the training is very old school and probably effective. They do their job, right? But these newer people who have an interest and they've heard of me because they listen to my podcast or something like that. They follow me online, so they're putting work into their dog education away from their workplace, right? So they're that kind of person, and that's a really different kind of person. And those people can be a pain in the ass and get under the skin of the people who don't do that within their workplace. And so they're either being sabotaged a little bit, like that could be that's the more extreme examples, but for the most part, just not supported because the people they're working with don't have the capacity to support them. They just don't know how. They don't, and they're not on the same sort of journey. And then similar across the sport dog people. So like a lot of the times, the people who end up getting in touch with me, I have to be careful choosing my words when I talk about sport dog people, especially away from the protection sport. But a lot of them are from training groups or clubs or sports that are for the most part force-free. And they're just not getting the success, or they're just not getting the support, or they're not getting the information from the people that they train with. And they can't go in person to other people locally, or they can't see anybody within that sort of direct network because that would get back to their people, and they don't want to be made a pariah of that club or group or whatever. And so I am very much a safe haven, right? Because they can talk to me from the secrecy of their living room, right? And one of the things I talk about, a fair amount is I don't really ever film or do anything publicly with client dogs. So like whenever you see me training a dog, it's either someone at a seminar, because I film all my seminars and everybody knows that, or my club members, right? So like I that's kind of the deal that I have with all my club members is, too bad those cameras roll and one of you's got to be behind it the whole time so that I can get some footage for social media. But I'm quite cautious, having been a guy that worked in a job that, cameras weren't allowed, I'm very sensitive to that. And so when I work with those kinds of people, I never take photos. I don't, film it or anything like that. And it's similar that when people get in touch with me and they often I've signed a lot of NDAs of people that are like, hey, I can't have anybody know about this because I'll be kicked out of either my unit for training in a way that I'm not meant to. And that's typical of some like European police officers that I've worked with who are, restricted to working only within a completely force-free paradigm. And that just doesn't work. And so I'm secretly helping them achieve success with their dogs. As well as, people within clubs and groups and stuff like that, and some of which who have a profile within that group. And when they can't achieve success within the system that they have, they don't want to be kicked out of that group or made a pariah of that group, but they still want to succeed. And so they come over and see if I can add any, weight or information to what they've got. Now, to be clear, I don't always succeed at that. Like sometimes people come to me just for a second set of eyes, or they're like, maybe there's a balanced perspective on this that I can't think of and that would work. And I don't have anything for them. Like a lot of the times we go through this stuff with people, and not a lot of the time, but enough that it's, the number is not zero of people where I'm like, I don't know, sounds like you've done everything I can think of, right? Like, I think that this isn't going to work out for this dog, or you and this dog are not in the right combination. You're not doing the right thing, or whatever it is. It doesn't always pan out.
Do you ever feel morally conflicted because of that same group is putting a lot of pressure on us, dog trainers that use aversives openly? Do you ever feel like there's a little bit of conflict of interest?
Yep, totally. I'll tell you a story. I'll have to sort of be vague enough in the details, and that will be clear why when I tell the story. But I had, for sure, like I've helped people in the past and that they've asked me to keep it on the down low, and I've sort of agreed. And then I went through a phase where I was like, no, fuck you, I'm not doing that. Like that's because you're a part of a group that is actively trying to stop me being able to do what I want to do. So fuck you. Like you're either in that group or you're not, right? And I'm not secretly helping you in that group. And then I had a client. Yep. It was an in-person client. Essentially, this person was a part of a training club, and was a very, had been in that training club for a really long time, was an integral part of it, and had a dog that was one of the sort of cornerstone examples of how good that training club is and the things they can do. And I wasn't around for the training of that dog, I don't know, but I certainly saw that dog, and it was those things. It was a dog that, you know, could be in the group classes, could be just put in a down and waited the entire time. Other dogs could interact with it. It just waited. It could be called upon to give a demonstration, and then it could be sent back to a down while the rest of the class was going on. So like, you know, like by all standards, a really perfect, nicely trained dog. Anyway, so that dog ages out, dies, and the person gets a new dog. The new dog's really high drive, got a lot going on, right? The new dog's really into doing stuff and really enjoys being amongst it, and can't do that stuff, right? Like certainly not on a force-free approach, and certainly not young. And so this person ultimately ended up being kicked out of the club, because the club, you know, you're no longer a representation of what the club is capable of doing. And so by the time they got in touch with me and asked me for my help, I was sort of a bit like, I was in this phase in my life at that time where I was like, no, fuck you. Like you, I'll help you, but not to get back there. And then they end up saying something that kind of broke my heart a little bit. It was like, Pat, that's my entire social circle. Like, that's all I have. That's all I've got going on. I'm retired. Like, that's what I do. And I want to get back there. And I was like, no, fuck those people. They kicked you out. Like, fuck them. Like, let's work on the dog. Like, let's put this prong collar on and get this done. Right. And this dog is going to wear this prong collar for the next, 18 months or whatever. And then you'll be able to phase it out over that time, but you'll be sweet. Because this is, mind you, like, this is a person who could easily be injured by the dog. Like, not that the dog was aggressive or anything, but it's a big, powerful, high drive dog. And this is an elderly person. And so I was like, no way, I'm not doing that. And the waterwork starts, and it was clear. It was like, no, that is my entire social circle. Like, the only reason I have this dog is to be a part of that social circle. And if I can't, then what's the fucking point? And I was like, oh, right. Like, and you have been kicked out. You have been, and no matter how much, it was clear, like, these people treated you like shit. They don't actually like you. They kicked you out. You exposed their lies. And so you can't be there. But the problem remained, right? Like, no, like, that's all I've got going on. So unless you want to be my friend and hang out with me, like, that's what I'm working towards. So I was like, oh, okay, like, no worries, we'll do it. And the dog, unfortunately, had the training then has to be quicker. We have to be more compulsive, because we have to get this done quicker in order to get the tools off quicker, to build the reliability, to continue to pretend that this dog is trained force-free and you can go back to your group of people and hang out. And I did that. And I think I've sat with that a decent amount and decided that it still was the right thing to do. Like, that feels like, in my heart, that feels fine. But there's other times, there's other people who have secretly got in touch with me, like people who have a profile because they want help with their Mondio dog and they need to learn how to use an e-collar and they want to keep that on the down low. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. No way. Good luck. Find help somewhere else. And then, like, I do have to sit with the fact that maybe they're just going to figure out the e-collar by themselves. And, that's just the sad reality of it, and that doesn't sit well with me, but I still, again, feel like saying no in that situation is the right answer. Mm-hmm. So the answer to your question is yes, but, or the other answer is no, it depends. Like, I sort of meet people in the middle or meet them wherever they are and make a decision at that point.
Started to look at it a little bit differently recently. We've got a chap in that has done some work with us. He's now learning to be a decoy in our club. And for a long time, he was a bit of a poster boy for force-free dog training. And he accumulated like 25,000 followers over a 3-4 year period. And then he turned around to me one day, he rang me out of the blue and he was like, mate, I need some help. I don't think what I'm doing is right. I'm not achieving what I need to be achieving with my clients and my own dogs. And what he quickly realized was, when he did make that change and he started being more public about it, he pretty much lost his whole source of business traffic, because he's accumulated 23,000 people that are very much within that force-free model. So prior to that, I was thinking, stop being a pussy, come out with it. If you feel like it's the right thing to do, then you have to speak up for it, because of these people are actively trying, like you said, trying to stop trainers like yourself, Kirky, and I. But then looking at it from his point of view, he's got bills to pay. He's got a mortgage to pay. It so happened that, he did come out of it. He lost a bunch of followers, but now he's, building things back up again. So it brings me on to a next question that will, for my own curiosity, how much of your content do people consume, typically, at your best guess, before they reach out to you? Like, how much Pat Stuart have they listened to or seen before they say, oh, hey, nice to meet you, Pat. It's strange speaking to you because I've listened to X amount of your podcasts.
Okay, so online, that's everyone, right? So when it's an online interaction with somebody, they've consumed most of everything, which is super handy, because then I like that, because then we're having a conversation here rather than here. And we're using the same terminology, and they understand a lot of what I'm going to say, and they're here for the detail, the stuff, either to ask the questions or find out the stuff that I haven't put out publicly, or that they haven't, understood in the way that I've said it in the past and want me to say it again. It's pretty rare. Like, every now and again, the Zoom meeting opens up and it's someone who, has been referred to me by someone who thought that I could help in that specific case. That, like, the 10% of them are that, but the 90% are probably people who are, have listened to the podcast, have, followed me on Instagram. I've got to get back to making long form stuff on YouTube. I'm going to do that this year. I've got a bunch of stuff in the pipeline, but when I was doing that, they've watched all that kind of stuff. In person, it's a different thing, because, like, to many people, I'm just the local dog trainer. Like, I'm just the guy that they got referred to in the area. And so those conversations, it's probably 50-50 people who have sought me out because they've digested a bunch of stuff and know who I am and think that I'm the person that can help them, versus just being, they got referred to me because, more often than not, the referrals that I get, like, it's a trainer that the specific problem is not what they specialize in, and so they've referred it on to me. And often with those people, like, if it's a really bad aggression case or something like that, they'll then accompany the person to the session. Like, that's usually the sort of deal I make with people that give me those kind of referrals. I'm like, yeah, but you should come, because, like, you should stop having to refer these things out. You should learn how to do it. But yeah, so, like, I do face those of random people who have never heard of me before and haven't digested any of my online stuff. And it is harder. There is an element then of sort of having to convince that person that I know what I'm talking about. Whereas, which is fine. Like, I'm happy to do that. Everybody should be able to prove that they know what they're talking about, but it just takes up time in the session, right? Like, whereas when somebody comes in and goes like, no, I've downloaded, I know all of your free stuff. I'm here for the stuff that's not free. That's why I'm paying for this session. Mm-hmm. We go, oh, cool. Like, let's start at the high level. Away we go. Whereas, when that's with the opposite, I'm like, okay, like, I've got to demonstrate to you and give you some small wins immediately and kind of show you my competence before I have your trust now. And now we can go on to things that are less intuitive or less obvious that it's going to work, right? And have them buy in on that and comply with the things that I suggest.
How often do you get people turn around and say, nah, that's bullshit?
So these days, not that often. I've had a few. Like, again, like, I'm pretty expensive. So, like, people tend not to, by the time they paid the money, they're usually like bought in at that point. But I've had that for sure. And I don't mind it at all. Like, I don't mind it at all. Like, in fact, whenever I teach seminars or events and stuff like that, I have this spiel that I give. I really mean this, and I make sure that it's understood by the people there. I say, look, I'm a generalist. Like, I specialize in, even the things that I say that I specialize in, I'm mediocre at, right? Like, I'm a protection sports guy. I know about police and military stuff, but, like, there's people who are way better than me. I'm pretty good. I'm good enough. I'm competent. And I'm a fantastic teacher. So even though I don't know as much as others, I can teach you all of what I know, right? And so I can get you to my standard fairly quickly. But I'm a generalist. So if you want to talk to me about agility and whatever, like, yeah, probably chances are I can help you out with some of that. I know a little bit, but I'm not an expert, like not by a long shot. And the thing of dogs, like a lot of us in the dog space think that what we do is the dog world, right? But the dog world is so massive, and I don't know shit about herding. You know what I mean? Like I haven't got the faintest clue. That may as well be magic to me. I've never been involved with it. I've watched it in awe. You know, I've never done anything even remotely close to being a participant of that, right? And so, but people come to me for help with their herding dog. I'm like, break it down for me. Like, what is it you're looking to do here? And I can see if I can add any value. But what I always say to people is I insist that they do this for me, and I encourage them to do this anywhere they go, is I'm like, don't let me wreck your dog, right? Like, don't let me do something you're not totally okay with me doing to your dog, because like, you know, I don't know the dog beyond what I'm seeing here. And like, I can read a dog. I understand what's going on. I know what's going on with this dog, but I don't know the whole history. I don't know what got you to this point. I don't know how hard you've worked to get to this place or how easy it was or whatever. So don't let me do something that's going to set you back, because I have no intention to set you back, but also like I could do that by accident. The other thing I say to people as well is like, I don't know your program. So like in some particular sports, in some particular things, it's very important that you go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, right? It has to be done in a particular way. And if you're working with a coach within that space, because if you're coming to a seminar of mine and asking for help, you're not an expert at what you're doing, right? Like you're a novice, you're an intermediate person. That's why you're asking, it's why you're out learning, asking for help. But your expert coach might really dislike what I'm going to do, because maybe I don't know in your specific thing of agility, like, you know, like the going over the seesaw and hitting the contact point and going down the other side. Some of the people that teach that have such rigid and strict methods on how they do that, that if I were to introduce the manners minder somewhere else to teach something else, that would radically affect the way that they teach that and would interrupt the learning procedure for the dog. And so, and I use that as a specific example because that's one of the things that has come up at a seminar. And I was very happy to hear it when someone was like, no, I can't do that because that will interfere with something else. And I was like, I don't even understand how that could interfere with that. So thank you for pointing that out, because we just won't do it. But what I say to people all the time is, don't let me derail your program. Don't let me do something to your dog that you're not totally comfortable with. Like, don't let me do something that you cringe at. Don't like complain about what I did afterwards and say you didn't want me to do it. Stop me immediately. I won't be offended. That's the whole point. I don't want to set your dog back. From my point of view, I'm always going to make progress with the dog, or at least keep it where it's at. But I don't know what progress looks like to you and the specifics of what you do. So stop me if you're not happy with what I want to do. And I always say to people as well, you know, the dogs that we get at events when I teach them, those dogs are stooges, right? Like those dogs, I don't really get too bogged down in the idea of making progress for those dogs. Those dogs are there to help us demonstrate the topics which I taught throughout the seminar or the event or whatever. That's what those dogs are there for. So it's super important that we use those dogs in that way, to me, in a way that also doesn't set the dogs back from what they were, you know, there to do. But one of the things that I think happens to people like me and others who travel to teach is, we notice this especially with a lot of the Euros that come here, is that there's a certain expectation in like, show me something awesome, right? Like do something fucking incredible, like do something spectacular. I'm going to bring out this dog that currently doesn't have a complex behavior, and the dog better leave here in 10 minutes with that goddamn complex behavior that you taught it, right? And they can do it. They pull it off because they're good. They know what they're doing. But, you know, in the room of 50 people, maybe only 2 or 3 of them know the booby traps that they're installing that will come out 2 or 3 weeks later after they're gone, right? Like the way that they're teaching the dog this thing, like, yeah, right now I'm going to give you the display and you're going to think I'm incredible and you're going to put your dog away and you're going to love it. And 3 weeks from now, you're going to get this weird reactive issue around the thing, like, you know, but you're not going to tie that to that person because you don't realize that's what set it in place. But they knew they were going to do that, but they knew that I have to put on the show. And so what I tell people, you know, I was trained by some of the best dog people around and best dog brokers ever. I was trained by some of the people who can make your dog look so bad you ask them to take it away from you just because it is so bad. And 10 minutes later, they could make that same dog look so good, somebody else is going to pay $10,000 for it, you know? So like, I know those tricks, but I always say to people, like, I have no interest in demonstrating those. Like, I don't feel a pressure to put on a show of me handling a dog in some spectacular way that like everyone goes, whoa, he's the best. What matters to me is that the dogs are treated fairly and ethically and make progress if we can, but the people who are here leave with a plan of how they're going to implement the thing that I was talking about and demonstrating on that dog onto other dogs that they experience, you know, in their lives, in their jobs, in their sport, in their career, whatever, right? Like, to me, it's about making sure that the people leave with an idea of like, okay, no, I saw it, understand it, I know how I'm going to implement it, rather than going like, oh, wow, did you see the way he did that thing with that dog? Geez, he's got high level of handling skills, right? Like, because that's cool, but that doesn't help them. That helps me, but that doesn't have them turn up again next time, right? So it doesn't help me long term and it doesn't help them either.
Let's say someone comes to you for help and they've got a problem. Like, they've got a behavior that needs to go away. Like, it's inconvenient to them, or all the way to it's dangerous to them. There's a question that was given to me this week. At what point do we accept that we might have to just manage that dog? What are we looking for as telltale signs or cues, or even things within the dog or within the relationship between dog and the human, are we looking for when we say it would be either like unethical to punish this out of the dog, or we will reach our limitations with any other method and you will have to manage the dog in a specific or multiple contexts?
Okay. So the way that I think about management versus training, and it, like, I know the specifics of your question are, say, like, you know, aversive control style training, but training is training, and we put it all into the same category, is that when you get a dog, when you first observe, you put your hands on a dog, whether it's a puppy or an adult or whatever, you have this sliding scale where you've got percentages of action, one being management and one being training, and they can only add up to 100, right? So when I first get a puppy, I'm 100% in management, and I start trying to introduce some training and reduce some management, right? And then there's periods of time where that, like, I can introduce some more training and I can reduce some management, but then that puppy has, you know, a hormone shift and gets a little bit older, and my management goes up because the puppy became a little asshole and the training that I had put in place is no longer effective. I need to sort of, you know, ramp that up or change it, or, you know, do things a little bit different. So my management went up a little bit. So therefore my training has come down a little bit. And I think that all dogs are constantly on this sliding scale. And I don't care who you are, like, into what level of degree you're capable of training the dog. We all sort of bounce between a level of management and a level of training, to the point where, you know, like my own dog, my Malinois, right? He's 8 years old. He's pretty highly trained. He's got titles in a bunch of different things and has played a bunch of different games. And, you know, I've put a lot of work into the dog. So I'd say at this point where, you know, maybe 80% training and 20% management. But like, and I say that because when he's here at club, he has to be like in a crate, and he's an annoying pain in the ass when he's in the crate and he can hear other dogs working. So he has to be in one of the crates that's either right near where I can intervene and introduce some training, or he's in one of the crates where he's all the way away and isn't, like, if I'm too busy and can't interfere with that, then he's somewhere else altogether. So that's 100% management in that moment, right? So I think that in terms of all training versus management, it's a sliding scale. And some dogs sort of get to the point where you go like, this is all management. I'm just barely able to put any training into this dog. We've got a little bit. We've got some like basic interaction with the dog. We've got the dog knows a couple of markers and can give us a little bit of focus and can stay interacting with the people a little bit. Let's call it 20%. The rest of that dog is just being managed the whole time. He's on a leash, he's in a crate, he's being controlled everywhere he goes, versus my dog who, like my Springer Spaniel, I don't even own a collar that fits that dog. You know what I mean? Like she sort of vaguely wears a slip leash as we walk around the area, but just to sort of tick the box of competence, like, yeah, my dog's on leash, but I can't imagine a world where she doesn't do what she's told, because she's at that level of training. She's the kind of dog, and my Malinois is kind of the same. Like, I don't need my front door shut. Like, he's not running away. Like, where's he going to go? He knows where he lives. Like, so it's this sliding scale of management to training. But I think it certainly gets to a point where with some dogs, depending on their level of neuroticism around something and the effectiveness of the training that I would do, like, for sure, there are dogs where we go, this is a management heavy case with, like, let's try and build the training and reduce the management. That's always my goal, is like training high, management low, but it just never starts that way. It's always management high, training low. And, my goal is to sort of overtake that. But that, if I can't do it, then that's fine. I have the management in place. Like, there are dogs that have to be managed all the time. And some of them often is because that's sort of their personality. That's who they are. Glenn, who I do my podcast with, like, he'll speak openly. We spoke about it just yesterday when we were recording something about, like, his dog Randy has no interest in having the level of freedom that my dog has, right? Like, Randy does not like it. He does not tolerate it well. He wants to be confined. He wants to be, like, when he's in the house, he's uncomfortable. He wants to be in the crate, right? Like, that's the only place he wants to be. He doesn't want that level of freedom. He likes to be restricted. My dog sleeps upside down the couch all day. He has total free reign of access at the house, right? And it's not because I'm any better trainer or even that my dog is more highly trained. It's because that's what's appropriate for my dog, right? Like, one dog is appropriate to have one thing and at one level of management to training ratio, and the other dog is, a totally different thing. And of course, the training could be done. Like, if Glenn really wanted, like, if he decided, no, Randy is going to become an inside dog and I'm going to do it, then, like, there's going to be a lot of place training. There's going to be a lot of confining that dog to one place. And now it's a lot of training to achieve what you were getting for free with management, right? So, like, I think that's part of, like, that has to be a consideration in that sliding scale of, like, yeah, cool. Like, I do want to increase my level of training in order to decrease my level of management. But if my training just ends up resulting in the same thing as management, like, and I do the cost benefit analysis. So this takes a lot of my time, a lot of my training interaction with the dog. Is it worth it when I've got all these other things I want to achieve with my dog? And the dog, because, typically the dogs that are headaches to live with are often the best workers. That's why they're headaches to live with. So you got to sort of look at that and go, how's that stack? Like, where's the sliding scale on that? So, sort of very winded way of answering your question is that it's always a sliding scale. It's always a sliding scale for sure. And with some dogs, like I said, my own Springer Spaniel, there's very little management involved. She has been trained to do the right thing. She comes when I call her. She's intuitively understands what's up. She's managed very infrequently. Whereas my Malinois, it's not quite the same versus any new dog I get in. If your dog comes to stay with me, he starts out being 100% managed, and then, like, it's the sliding scale starts, and we just find where we land, right? And if that means we're at 50-50 for a little while, that's fine. And then as training takes up and the management comes down, that's fine too. Like, it's as long as they're moving in harmony, they're moving together, I'll never have a problem.
Okay, so that leads me on to another question. When is it a time to opt for punishment as opposed to reinforcement? When do we opt to say, hey, you are no longer allowed to do that, or I need that behavior to go, versus do this instead? What are we looking for in a case where the reinforcement probably isn't going to cut it, or where we just decide to opt for eradicating that behavior instead of pushing the dog into another?
So early days in training with a dog, one of the reasons why I would opt for punishing the dog's attempt at one behavior versus reinforcing either negatively or positively the alternate incompatible behavior. One of the reasons why I would go to punishment right away is in order to say to the dog, or if the behavior is, hey, you are never going to be allowed to do that. Under no circumstances ever is that going to be something that you're allowed to do. And the quicker that a dog understands that, the better. And I think that, for sure, there's a lot of merit, there's a lot of value in, differential reinforcement of other behaviors and of incompatible behaviors and all that kind of stuff. Like, for sure, I'm on board with all that. There's times when that can work, but there's times when it absolutely will not work. And I think as well, even for us who are balanced trainers, certainly, if someone cared enough, you can probably dig back through recordings of me speaking and find me in total conflict with what I'm about to say, like saying the total opposite of what I'm saying now. Because I have been in the past, and I observe of many trainers now, this idea of like, no, I don't need to tell the dog not to do stuff. I am super good at telling dogs how to do stuff, and I can compel them to do things. I know I'm elegant, and I'm good in the use of negative reinforcement to make the dog do something else. And then when I've got the dog doing it, I'm very good at the application of positive reinforcement to make the dog want to do that again. And I think what we find with a lot of balanced trainers is that we end up sort of trapping dogs in alternate behaviors under reinforcement. And so when I say trapped under reinforcement, I mean being held there by the looming threat of escaping and avoiding some sort of pressure that will push them into the behavior, but then also really sort of wanting to do the behavior also because they will get the positive reinforcement that will come of having completed it. So we can trap a dog under reinforcement, but that actually can still remain a super stressful thing if the dog is only like, is still in conflict over wanting to do this alternate behavior. So like, let's make this real and put it in pet dog terms, and we can say like counter surfing, right? Like that's a classic example. The dog wants to eat off the counter, and I can say to the dog like, no, when there's food on the counter, that's an indicator to you that you must go onto your bed. Right. And I can teach you to go to your spot in the house or your place or whatever, however people want to teach it. And I can teach that, and, like with a positive reinforcement for being there. And I can, make some reliability and use some negative reinforcements so that I can correct the dog into being there. But now that dog still thinks that the thing on the counter is that something that's available to him, if only he were not trapped on this bed. Right. And that's going to be going through the dog's mind of like, if only I weren't stuck on this bed, if only he hadn't told me, I would be able to eat that food that's on the counter, and gosh, I want it so badly. And so now while the dog is on the bed, he's observing that thinking like, maybe I can get it. Right. Like, and he starts playing the games of what is the positive reinforcement, like that the reinforcer that's available to me for having been on the bed? What's the reinforcement history, weight, volume, delivery method? Like I'm sure the dog is not thinking in that detail, but like that's the vibes, right? Of like, what's this worth to me? And then he's going to be looking and going, what's your capacity for compulsion, right? Like, how did you do this? Is this a prong collar? Am I wearing it? Is it a slip leash? Am I wearing it? Is this an electric collar? Am I wearing it? Right? How actually able are you to stop me? And so then the dog starts thinking and does the sort of motivational maths. How badly do I want that? Versus how badly do I, know that I should do this? And even if the dog still makes the right decision every time, even if the dog still remains on the bed, it's possible that he's quite stressed because of that thought process and the idea of like, maybe if I could just get to it. And maybe we never observe him do it. Or the opposite, you get dogs that are like, the second you're not looking, I'm going after it because you can't stop me, which is one of the options that could happen. Or even worse, the dog starts to enjoy the game of, can you stop me in time, right? Like I see the sandwich on the counter. How much of it can I eat before you come over and stop me doing it and drag me back to the bed or compel me back to it? And that in and of itself can be a highly repetitive yet stressful thing, depending on the type of dog. Now, like some people listening, depending on the kinds of dogs you've played with, like some of the people, they're imagining this of their cavoodle or whatever, and they're like, that would never happen. It's like, cool, like maybe not with your dog, but my Malinois, that's all he thinks about, like nonstop all day, right? Like that's what he does. If you trap him under negative reinforcement, he starts thinking like, this is amazing, right? Like how much of this can I tolerate? I'll see how hard I can push this. Where are the limits of this? He's going to start pushing every button that he can find. Whereas if you just say to the dog, hey man, you can't eat that stuff off the counter. All right, like that's off the table. You're never going to be allowed to do that. You can't do that now. You can't do that tomorrow. You can't fucking do that ever, right? And you take that off the table via punishment. Now that dog doesn't need to be on the bed. Now he can be free, right? Now I don't need to give him such strict, like place, or I don't have to trap him under that reinforcement. I can just say, don't do that. Don't do that ever. You're never going to be allowed to do that. So if that's the case for me, if there's a behavior like eating off the counter that is never going to be allowed, I'm not going to bother trying to teach some sort of incompatible behavior. Like, no way, right? I'm gonna be saying like, no, you're never allowed to do that. Right from the jump, that's punishment. You can't do that. But sometimes the really repetitive things I might like to punish a dog for doing now, I actually need them to do later. Right. So like, for us in the protection sports, tagging a decoy, taking those dirty bites, stuff like that. So sometimes then I have to look at that and go, given the circumstances, I have to find a way to have you not do that presently, but I do need you to still think you can do that because I need you to do that later. So that's an instance there where I'm going to go, no, in the meantime, I'm going to compel you and reinforce and do all the things that makes you want to do the alternate behavior. I'll deal with the conflict and the management around you still wanting to do that other thing until you're competent in doing that. And now I can say to you, no, you can't do that without my permission. Without me saying do that, you can't do that. And now that's available to be punished. So, like in lifestyle and management type stuff, my dog's never allowed to bite anyone in the street, right? Like that's never allowed to happen. My dog's never allowed to jump up on the counter and eat stuff off the counter. He's never allowed to be dangerous. So all those things, not happening. But in the training space where I'm training my dog to do stuff, he's going to genetically and, just Mother Nature's going to compel him to want to do a lot of the things that he's not ready for. And so I can't punish him for doing those things. I have to say like, hey man, you can't do that now. I'm going to steer you in another direction. I'm going to, I'm going to steer you there with negative reinforcement. I'm going to try and hold you there with positive reinforcement and make it your choice to do it. Acknowledge the conflict of wanting to do the other thing. Get you competent at doing the other thing, put that on command, and now without the command, I can punish you, right? And so that's exactly what we do with like our decoy neutrality and stuff like that in the sports, right? We say to the dog like, yeah, when it's biting time, go ham, right? Go mental, bite as hard as you can. I love it. I'm going to assist you. I'm going to cheer you on. Hell yeah. But when I tell you to down, you have to down. You can't bite, right? I'm not going to punish you if you try and bite because I really like that you bite, but I'm going to compel you into this down. And then when you can do both of those really nice separately, I'm going to bring them together. And if you bite without my permission, now I can say, I know you know how to bite. I know that if I were to punish you, you would understand that it's because you did it without permission rather than just doing it at all. And I'm not going to lose the behavior altogether. So to me, they're the kind of gates that I go through. Do I ever want the dog to be able to do it? Well, I can't punish it. Not yet until I have it on command. And then when it's on command, I can say to the dog, no, you can't do that until I give you the command. Then I can punish it. That's kind of the gate I have to go through.
Could there be an argument presented that reinforcement in itself is management because of typically we have to have a behavior for the dog to push into. Typically that relies on our presence. So could we not argue that teaching a dog purely through reinforcement, both positive and negative, as you said, is still a form of management and is not actually training at all? Because when the dog is then at true liberty, he might go and do the thing that he's not meant to do.
Yeah, for sure. And like we could make that point, and I'd happily argue that. No worries. I'd make that point. But then you could ring a bell and I'd argue the opposite as well. You know what I mean? So like, I think we could get into that wordplay for sure. I could make the same argument about punishment being management as well, right? Like that knife cuts both ways, I think. I think that we can say that fairly confidently. And I think that's one of the sort of bigger issues that we face in the dog space is, there's a lot of wordplay. It's not just us, it's everywhere. There's people being dickheads in everything. You only got to look at any politician talking ever is that you're like, hey man, like those words were technically accurate, but that's a bunch of bullshit that just fell out of your face, right? Like that like you have technically not lied, but there was no truth in anything that you said. And I think that we face a lot of that. And I think that that's one of the things that we see in, in forums, in dog spaces and whatever. There's tons of people arguing about just semantic nonsense. It's not worth exploring.
Just going back to the punishment negative reinforcement discussion. In a multi-dog household, one dog has beef with another dog. I assume you'd go down the punishment route of, right, you cannot smash up my other dog, rather than pushing him into a different behavior, because you're never going to want that to come to fruition.
Yeah, with some complexities. So like, yes, but multi-dog households, when we say that, there's this implication that all of a sudden I have a bunch of dogs in my house, right? But it never goes that way, right? I've got a dog and I'm bringing in another one, or I've got two and I'm bringing in a third or whatever. And I think one of the things that avoids us ever having to play in punishment for, dogs having beef with each other is that I sort of establish that's not allowed to happen. And what I say goes. And I think one of the most important things about bringing two dogs into the space is that it's often very unfair where we've got a very highly trained dog because it's ours, we're dog people, it's a dog in the house, and then we bring in this other rando, right, who we don't have control over. And what we end up doing is that dog's just being a dog and it's in a confined space with another dog. And of course it's going to, most likely act inappropriately because chances are that's why it's come to us. And it just hasn't had the opportunity to learn what is appropriate. And we are able to control our own dog, right? So what our dog ends up seeing is like, hey, this is bullshit. Like, why am I getting told what to do while you have no control over him? And then the madness unfolds from there. Right. And so for me, when I have issues between two dogs, before I actually address the issue with the dogs and punish one dog for being, inappropriate with the other, I have to first demonstrate to both dogs that I have control over both of them, that there's what Jay Jack would refer to as a line of responsibility from me to both of them. And so they don't need to attempt to establish any lines of responsibility over each other. So once I have that, then I can when I can control both dogs with verbal commands or leashes or wherever I'm at, and I've demonstrated that to both dogs. So if I'm in a situation where I am having to sort of bring two dogs to be in the same place and get along together, I'm for sure going to make one dog watch me train another. And then I'm going to flip the coin on that and make them do the other from within a crate initially. And ultimately I'd like to get it to the point where they're like on a place or something like that. Like they're just in a down while I'm training the other dog. But I need them to see that I can control each other. And then when I have that, now it's fair for me to say to the one dog, hey, you're not allowed to retaliate. I will come over and because of the inappropriate behavior of this dog to you, I will deal with that, right? And now the other dog can be like, okay, fair enough. Like you do it. I trust that you will and can because you have done it to me and I've seen you train him and I believe that he listens to what you do. And then at that point, that's where I'm happily going to punish one dog for being the pain in the ass on the other. But I think what's very important as well to understand, and that's where this training piece becomes so important, is that for us, for the average, like for us as dog people, we see it. But typically with a lot of people who have two dogs in their home, the instigator is very often, from their perspective, is very often not the instigator, right? Like I think that a lot of people, as you'd know, they miss a lot of the cues of inappropriate behavior from one dog. And then the other dog is actually finishing the problem. It's the other one that's starting it. And of course, like you do have to say to the dog, hey, just because he was hard staring at you and basically inviting you to come over here and bite him, you can't do that, right? Like I am going to tell you can't go and respond to him, but also like I do have to tell the other dog like, hey man, can't do that either, right? Like so they're both got to be realigned as to what's appropriate behavior in the house. And so I think that, it's a sort of a long-winded answer to your question, but I think that really what we're showing is that punishment, while we can for sure just be like, oh, you can't do that, punishment, you can do that, but a lot of the times that's not helpful. There's a lot of other stuff we have to put in place, and then sometimes we result in not having to punish. But then when we have all that other control mechanisms and training and management stuff in place, it means that the punishment is often minuscule when it happens, and it can be often theatrical, like that's one of the things that I find, like people say that you should never punish puppies and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, that's really when you should punish them, right? Because you can punish them for doing like nonsense behaviors that aren't a big deal. And the level of punishment, the way that you punish it can be so minuscule. Like I've done this at events and looked up, I did it at State Line one time with this young shepherd, And I taught people about punishment, and just the word punishment sounds so terrible, and the people have this idea of like, oh my God, he's doing these horrible things to the dog. And I punished this puppy, and I looked up to the crowd, there were 60 people there, and I said, who saw it? And like 2 people were like, oh, I saw how you punished the dog, right? So like it can be so subtle and non-physical, like just from timeouts and stuff like that. But that's what I want to do, is punish like tiny menial shit in low drive behaviors. And I put my marker to that, so the dog understands when I say no, it means don't continue progressing. And now like that tends to extrapolate or subtension as the dog gets older. And so does the arousal and the problem behaviors. As they get worse, my punishment very often doesn't have to match it, because the dog understands, oh, you're just telling me not to do that. And, if you're in harmony, there's no conflict, and the dog wants to live within the space and work with you, once you have established what punishment is and what it means to the dog, very often you don't really have to punish, because you can just tell the dog, like give that marker, which says to the dog, if you keep going, we'll end up having to be punished. But the dog understands that, goes, oh, it's cool. Like now I know. I didn't know, but you told me and now I know. So sweet, life carries on and I feel great about it. So that's my sort of thoughts around that.
Beautiful.
I'm going to ask a couple of these. I think we probably only have time for maybe 3 or 4. So it looks like a ban on e-collars and prong collars is imminent in Scotland. And so there's a lot of talk of what might happen should the ban come into fruition. But we're now able to ask people from certain countries and states of what has happened when bans have been put in place. Have you seen any obvious ramifications of tool bans in your state of New South Wales, where I believe prong and e-collars banned?
Yeah, so where I'm at, e-collars are illegal. It's kind of weird, like if you're on the east coast of Australia, it makes a lot of weird changes as you go up the east coast, right? So in Victoria, down the bottom, e-collars are legal with permission from a vet. So you have to get like a health check, which I don't think is a bad idea, except that it can be hard to find a vet that will sign off on it, but they exist. But prong collars are banned. You go up one state, you got to take off your e-collar, but you can put on a prong collar. That's where I am in New South Wales. And then if you go up one state to Queensland, now you're good to go for e-collars, but no prong collars. So it's very strange. But what we see is, like, unfortunately, we don't get the data on this stuff, right? Like it's very anecdotal, right? Like what I can tell you is all anecdotal. Like I haven't seen any data on that. And the RSPCA and the various organizations that push for these tool bans, they don't give us any data. So, like when prong collars were being banned in Queensland, the guys that were fighting that were asking, like, if these are so cruel and you're so worried about people being cruel with them, give us a number of how many convictions you have of people being cruel with the prong collar. And the number was 0. None were provided. That doesn't necessarily mean there's 0, but they couldn't point us to a single case. And so the problem that we have with these sorts of tools being banned is that I think that the way that a person is likely to interact with a dog is the way that person is likely to interact with a dog. I think that people who are likely to give a correction when they feel that it's needed, and we're talking about just average pet dog owner, not professionals, right? Nobody with formal training in dog handling and training. The average person is going to deal with the behaviors that they see and want to reinforce or get rid of how they see fit. And if the tools aren't available to them, they're still going to go with aversive means, right? Only they're not going to have those aversive tools available to them. So I think Blind Freddy could tell you that you're decreasing the animal welfare in anywhere that you ban those tools. I think that anybody who is able to do just even rudimentary thinking, right? Like who can link one step to another in the most basic way can see that you are for sure going to decrease. When you look at the whole picture of it, for sure, some dogs are going to have a prong collar or an e-collar taken off of them and their life will be improved a little bit by that, right? Like that's going to exist. But more than that, there's going to be dogs that are going to have those tools taken off of them. And now you can break those dogs into 2 categories. One that's never going to leave the house again because they're unmanageable without those tools, right? And the people can't leave without it. Like every trainer has had the client of the 80-year-old lady with the dog that's twice as strong as her and can drag her into traffic. Like we all meet those eventually. I met my one. She wasn't 80, but she was very small while I was still in the army. It was like one of my earliest clients was the Doberman dragged her through traffic to get to me because the dog liked me. And as soon as it saw me, dragged her through traffic. There's nothing she could do about it. And I was like, okay, we're putting a prong collar on now, right? Because that's too dangerous. We can't do that. And so there's those dogs that are going to have their lives, their quality of life decreased by the banning of those tools. It's either going to be because now they can't go places and do cool things because they can't do that. The owner can't handle them. They're too drivey or blah, blah, blah. There's all these reasons. But then there's the others who the owners are going to go, okay, well, like I know that the function of this tool is to provide an aversive. I'm still capable of doing that without the tool. And now we're headed into, like what things were like hundreds of years ago before the tools were invented, and like archaic shit. And that's what we observe in it. Like, you look at in Europe where a lot of the tools are being banned throughout the place. Some of the training for a place that was sort of the leaders in dog training and dog sport and the capability of dogs, a lot of them now, it's just pure brutality being done to those dogs behind closed doors or in the woods where no one can see it, rather than, like the way that you would expect, like the finesse and training capability when you have those tools. So from my point of view, like I can't give you numbers. I can't give you exact data, but almost certainly I would say that everywhere that I've observed tool bans, it has been to the detriment of dogs in that area as a whole. Like the level of suffering to dogs in that place increases when the tools are banned.
I'm going to ask you a very superficial question on the back end of that, but I think it's important for our listeners that potentially are not currently indulged in the dog training space, or dog trainers that are listening that will have this question posed to them. In your best effort, Pat, in a couple of sentences, why use the tools? What is their purpose? If we can do it with better methods, more ethical methods, and the scientific consensus say we do not need to use tools or aversives, why are you suggesting that we should?
Yeah, so the science doesn't say that. Right? Like there is no evidence of that. There are a lot of people that will say that, and I've given up arguing with people online, right? Like I don't do it anymore. But when I used to, I would ask people who were pushing a lot of these things, oh, well, the science says this. I'm like, specifically where? And even sometimes people would quote studies that were not proving their point. And I'd be like, have you read this? Because I have. I know how to read, right? Look at me glasses. I'm a pretend smart person, right? Like I've read it. It doesn't support your position, right? And so, and the other one is that a lot of the studies that will tell you that the tools are bad, especially aversive use of the tools, there'll be this one little word hidden in there and it'll be non-contingent. So they'll say, oh, e-collars are bad, fucked up this dog. Look how fucked up this dog is from the e-collar. We used it, we punished him in a non-contingent manner. And then people go, oh, right, okay, non-contingent. Like, righto, that must be some big science word. It means we just fucking randomly stimmed him for no reason and he couldn't figure out why. So yeah, no shit. And the only people doing that are you. They're like the only people doing that are you to prove that it's bad. And congratulations, you proved something that we all knew. So the science doesn't support it. That's a fact. But of course, like, compulsion can cause stress. Like there is science that says like that there are reasons not to and to minimize it for sure. Well, of course, right? Why not? But the truth is the reason that we use tools in the way that we do to help compel dogs to do things and can help dogs understand not to do things is that it helps us provide a form of communication that the dog best understands, right? Now, that's how dogs will communicate with each other. They'll use a lot of pressure to compel behaviors, and they'll use aversive experiences to get rid of behaviors, right? They'll make things go extinct via aversive experiences to each other, and they'll compel behaviors. Now, the argument that comes back on that is like, yeah, but we're so much more evolved. Surely you have a better way of communicating. Like, you're not a dog, Jacob. You should be able to communicate with a dog in a different way. And I'm like, yes, but that is a dog and that's who I'm communicating with. So while I'm capable of communicating in many ways, he is not. And so I have to adapt to communicate to him rather than come up with some amazing, incredible thing that feels nice to me, but fails to deliver the information to the animal. So as in all things, you have to meet the dog where they're at. Right? Like I have to sit with you and communicate with you in a way that you will understand.
Thank you. It's a good reel there. That's what I had in the forefront of my mind.
That's the one.
So it's typically agreed upon that when we are wanting to create more power, potency, reliability in behaviors, we reward it intermittently, right? And intermittently can spike dopamine and we're going to have stronger behaviors. But seldom, if ever, do we condition our marker with intermittency.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, when people are first charging their clicker, let's say, we might provide a variable reward, e.g. one piece or a jackpot, but rarely do we click and provide the dog nothing. Why is that?
Yeah. So you can, of course you can, but there's a few reasons not to. There's numerous reasons not to. So first of all, you know, the classic Michael Ellis line, your marker is a battery. You have to charge that battery, and every time you use it and don't pay, you are using some of the battery. And so there are times I'll do it because I don't have the payment on me and I want to tell the dog, hey, that was the right thing, or I want to change the behavior of the dog. I use markers a lot to change behavior of the dog because if it's reflexive, the dog can't help but change behavior. And so I might think, okay, my marker is the best thing to use here. It will get the most salient or potent response from the dog, but I don't have the thing on me, so I'll do it. That's a reason to do it. But I have to know then in that moment, like, okay, well, I am damaging my marker. Like I can get away with this once, twice, but a third time, I'm going to start reducing the efficacy of my marker. The other reason why, you know, you potentially don't want to be going to that variable schedule of reinforcement after the marker is it can create frustration, and frustration can create aggression. And because you are interacting with a dog like you've marked and not paid the dog is facing straight onto you. And so you can create, you know, it's probably fair in that moment to call it like conflict, right? Like you're going to create a problem between you and the dog because the dog has an expectation of what's going to come from you, is looking right at you, and then it doesn't come. And that frustration once or twice, and with some dogs, never will be a problem. Other dogs, you're going to run into a problem very quickly. And this is why with, you know, like wild animals, or, you know, exotics, especially dangerous ones, they never go to variable reinforcement schedules, right? It's like consistent reward mark delivery because we don't want to tap into that frustration and that aggression that can come from it. So the opposite is true with us with dogs. We absolutely want to be chaining behaviors together because we don't mind if that frustrates the dog a little bit and makes the dog even just a bit aggressive in the work, because it means that they're going to commit to the work harder, right? Like they're like doing it with oomph and like, I'm really doing it. But typically at the presentation of the marker, we then don't want them coming to us and furthering that frustration and therefore potentially aggression towards us. We actually want that marker to signal a relief from the frustration and the pressure that we've built within the dog to be continually pushing the dog along. Think of it like a pressure cooker, right? Like when we're chaining behaviors together, the dog knows that if he sits, he gets paid. He knows if he stands, he gets paid. If he knows if he does some healing, he gets paid. He knows if he downs, he gets paid. And when you start building those things together, sit, down, stand, heal, as you're walking along, that dog's starting to like load. And he gets to the point where eventually he'll quit and be like, hey, the reinforcer didn't come. But prior to that, he's going to build this really strong ramp of expectation. And like it's essentially frustration that's going to drive him into that expectation. So he's going to start to be like, hey, when's it coming? And that, of course, is, you know, that's how with some of the spicier dogs, you can get them sort of in the heel, they might tag you in the armpit and like, I'll take the ball myself, even though it's not there, right? Like, or they might bite the leash or something like that. That's because we sort of tipped them over the edge of frustration and it became aggression. And so one of the reasons why I encourage people not to put themselves in a position where they mark and don't deliver the reinforcer if they can. Like, of course, there's times where you can't, but if you're in a position to do it, you should, because I want the dog to think of that marker as a release from the pressure of the behavior. And I want the dog to be running to me in that like highly anticipatory, like, feel good, we did it together, give me the thing for having done it. And now I can metabolize that stress. Like we can play, you bite the wedge, we play with the ball, you get to chase it, whatever. But if I give that marker, the dog comes running in this level of expectation, then I tell him to heel, for sure, I've bottled up more power, right? But I shook that bottle pretty hard, and eventually it's going to open and spray everywhere. And so that's one of the main reasons. So we don't want to diminish the battery, but also we want to sort of go into a level of, keeping our end of the bargain, where we say to the dog, you just do all this stuff and then I'll pay you. Right. And rather than like do all this stuff and maybe I'll pay you. Right. Because we want it to be maybe I'll pay you on this one. Maybe I'll pay you on this one. That's where the variable should come from, not whether it's going to happen at all.
We'll move on again because I just want to get maybe two or three more in. We have a hypothetical reactive 10-month-old Malinois. Now, as we see a lot with dog trainers, people bring us a Malinois.
Yeah.
And it has a phenomenal skill set. It will heel, it will down, it will walk between the legs, it will retrieve, it will heel on the right, heel on the left, it will give us a front position, it will spin, bark, and everything you could ever need a dog to do. However, it is reactive to other dogs, people, or potentially both. Again, a difficult question to just speak so vaguely about, but what do you see is the most typical missing piece of the puzzle when we have a case like that, which we see time and time again, right?
No socialization. So what we see is people who will get their first protection dog, right? Or their sport dog or whatever it is. And no one should touch this dog except me, right? And like, it's my dog, no one touch it. And it's got to protect me, and it shouldn't have other friends, and it shouldn't be social with other people. Because like, the truth is, I've had a lot of Malinois puppies come through my hands, and I don't know that I've ever had one that wasn't reactive to either people or other dogs or the environment at large. Because and truth be told, the couple of Malinois puppies that I've seen that aren't reactive like that, they don't turn out to be any good. Because that's the personality trait that they need. They need to be hyper aware and be like, hey, I want to interfere with my environment, right? Like I want to push buttons. I want to see what happens. When I do this, what happens to you? And the issue is, especially if that person is doing a lot of obedience and maybe they are working with a decoy or whatever, the dog is good at pushing buttons, right? And so when they take it out and it is reactive, it's highly effective at being reactive, right? Like we call it reactive, but it is actually instigating the problem, and people and other dogs are reacting to it, right? So more often than not, when we have that, it's just that the dog wasn't socialized adequately. And very often, like when people have a young dog and it's immediately reactive, like the moment they bring it away from the breeder or they put it in an overwhelming situation, then they're like, oh shit, I don't know what to do with this. And so they just avoid all those situations. And so it's my experience for the most part that people who get to 10 months with their dog that are trainers and are good, right? Like they've got a highly trained dog that can do cool stuff, but out of the work and out of drive, the dog's a mess. It's almost always the case that they didn't adequately socialize that dog. And because the dog showed them those reactive issues right away and they didn't know how to work through it or didn't have people to help them or opportunity or whatever, and they didn't. So, for me, we actually are about to release it in the next couple of days, but me and Jazz have released this like puppy raising course, and we have footage in that because it's one of the things that the set of dogs that we've got at the moment, they're a bit over a year old, but when we got them, at the end of 2023, they were both reactive as hell. They were disasters, right? And one of them has turned out, they're both great dogs. We're keeping one. The other one's going to go to some like high level units. He's one of the best dogs I've ever seen. But by God, he was reactive and for no reason. And so like we've got all the footage of how to just short line the dog and just flood them through that. Because like I think that with a lot of like young Malinois or that type of dog, the way that people are trying to socialize them through that reactivity actually just draws a lot of attention to the reactivity and worsens it, right? And sort of it just becomes this frenzy of drive activity where the dog's taking food and doing all the things and still reacting, and it just sort of draws attention to it. It's a bit like looking at the spider. So more often than not, the way to do it with these young dogs that are just sort of seeing more than what the average Labrador sees, you know, like they're just taking in more data than they're capable of processing, and that looks like reactivity, is we just sort of short line them. Like if I've got a young dog and it, you know, like this is going to happen with every pointy-eared dog that I've ever had, is that the first time it goes out into the world and sees something completely new, it's going to bark at it, right? Like, of course it's going to. It's going to like bark, lunge, and growl. And in that moment, I'm going to hold it on a short line so that it can't get out ahead of me, but can't get behind me either. Like it's just a short line that it's comfortable. It's on the floor, but it's right next to me. Can't move around much. And I'm going to approach the thing that it was barking at. And I'm going to approach it kind of dismissively. Like I'm going to be like, you silly Billy, like that's nothing to be worried about. That's our friend Jacob. And we go walking over and I like talk to you. And of course the dog will go mental and we ignore that crazy behavior. We're like dismissive of it. Like this is the silliest thing I've ever seen. You're 8 weeks old. You can't hurt me or anybody else. And eventually that dog goes like, oh, well, like I'm worried about this dude. All my efforts of bark, lunge, growl are not working. I'm still worried. I'll try appeasement. And as soon as the dog goes to like, oh God, appeasement, like I'll show you some cutely puppy behaviors, we interact with the dog and we give him a wonderful time. And you pick him up and you cuddle him and you tell him he's a good boy. And then the dog goes, got it wrong. Like totally misunderstood this situation. I thought this was a threat. This isn't a threat at all. And typically you only have to do that half a dozen times in different places, different things. And that's your reactivity problem. Never going to rear its head again. Now, like that's with a nice stable dog that's just nice and spicy and takes in the things. Of course, there are dogs that have had issues. Like if a dog's had an issue, that's not the fix, right? Like if something's actually happened to the dog and it has a reason to be reactive, then that's not the fix. And in fact, doing that's going to make it 1,000 times worse, you know, and it would be unfair to do that. But for the most part, that's the way to do it. But like I say, of course, flooding a dog through a difficult situation like that's not the answer for all dogs. That's the nuance of this sort of thing, right? Like but for a puppy that's never had a bad experience, that's totally the answer.
Kirky's just got a client now. He's saying farewells. Okay. Couple more questions. And this is a question I get in my inbox every single day. Potentially aspiring dog trainers. They're not ready to jump perhaps to a full mentorship or do a shadow program, but they're looking for resources to just start expanding their knowledge and look at past, you know, your typical puppy books that you can buy on Amazon. When people ask you this question, where do you typically direct them to?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Mate, I think that, you know, we can plug stuff, right? So you and I both put a lot of time into providing training to people like that. And so for me, that's exactly the type of training that I try and provide. So like the people that I interact with are not brand new random pet dog owners. Like, you know, like I have clients of that, but they're not the people that I'm training. I train people who are like, no, I'm a dog person now and I really, really want to understand this stuff and get to the bottom of like what's real and what's not. So I have an online course. Yeah, my existing one, it has been out for nearly 12 months and a lot of success with that, like a lot of good feedback. And I'm about to release a much bigger package that will be available in the next couple of weeks. It's all done and made. I just haven't had the time to actually pull the trigger on it all. But what I will say of that, like I'm very proud of what I make. I put a lot of work into it. It's a, you know, the new course especially is going to be what I'm calling like a guided learning process. So I'm going to hold your hand as we go through it. Like I'm available to answer questions and stuff like that. The old course is just you watch it. And that's going to form part of the new course. But the new thing is like, no, I've spent a lot of time laying this out. I've taught the lessons in a way that I know that they should be learned. I've got them in the order that will allow you to understand these things as they go so that everything builds upon each other, and I'm going to be available to answer questions. But what I will say is like, I'm one of many. There's heaps of people that have really cool courses like that. And there's tons of people's Patreons and stuff like that. And so I think my best advice to people looking to ramp it up and get to, you know, join the real dog crew of people that really get it and do cool stuff with their dog. And like there's various methods and means to do that. We don't all agree on everything, but like, you know, the majority of the people who, if they've got a decent following, they're doing cool stuff, they know enough to teach as well. There's heaps of them, but I think look for the person who you resonate with. That's the main thing. And look for a person who can explain what they do rather than just like tell you how to do it. Because tell you, it's the classic sort of teach a man to fish and feed him forever, give him a fish, feed him for a meal. So like, that's my style. I'd rather like, no, I'm going to talk through so that you understand this. Even if you've come to me just to fix this specific problem with the dog, I need you to understand this so that if you see the same problem again, you can fix it and you don't have to talk to me again. And I'm sure, mate, like you're doing a lot of the same sort of stuff. Like you're doing a lot of the, like, get out of the nonsense, the like bringing people from the fluffy surface level understanding of things to like, no, this is the for real, how it's actually done by people who do it every day.
Yeah, and without circle jerking you, my answer is often a couple of books in particular, and the first 300 episodes of your podcast. Like I said to you in the past, I've learned a lot from that, and I say like, hey, don't even think about a mentorship or spending any extra money. Go and consume Pat and Glenn's podcast, and you will learn more than any textbook or anything like that. So I commend you for that, and hopefully that's even more motivation to keep doing what you do and keep pushing it. And when are you going to announce this course officially, Pat? I know you and I have spoken about it, and I'm pushing you to have a big grand opening.
Probably about another 2 weeks. Like it's all done, it's all made. You're
far too casual on this sort of stuff for me.
I know. There's no rush, you know, like I've been at this a while. I've learned you only get one chance to launch something. And so I want to make sure that it's all done and ready. And I'm going to kind of trickle it out. So over the next few weeks, it'll be available. And within a month, like anybody will be able to buy it, but I'm going to kind of trickle it out and have sort of beta. I've got a few beta testers in there currently, sort of just checking that everything is good to go. And this bigger course, one of the reasons why I'm taking so long on it is, you know, it's my life's work, right? So like it's sort of all the other courses that I've done is like, hey, here's some cool info on this, right? And like, here's a great starting point for this. But this is everything I know, right? And I'm like putting it all together, and it'll continue to grow. Like my plan, we'll see how the world pans out, but my plan is that this is kind of the end game for me, and I'll never actually finish this course. I'm just going to keep updating it so people will have access to it, and it'll just continue to grow as I understand and change more things and find cooler ways to explain it or do it or teach it. It'll just continue to develop over time. So that's
what you're saying is as close to a dog brain transplant as you can possibly get. Yeah,
that's what I'm going for.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you doing like a group? Are you doing cycles of it? Can people come in at any time?
Yeah.
Does it have a name?
Well, yeah. So we've been talking about it. I'm trying to figure this out, right? So like I have issues of my own about like how much to charge people. Like there's a scale, right? Like of how much can I charge and feel good about myself and providing information to people, but how do I keep the lights on in here and make enough money to actually live? And that's sort of, you know, like the sliding scale I'm trying to figure out. But at the moment, I'm toying with the idea. I'm definitely interested in your feedback on it, mate. Like I'm thinking that it's going to be one-time payment to come in to the course, and you get like 3 months of access to me and these ongoing support and webinars so that I can guide you through it. But then if you want to maintain that access to me after the 3 months, then you'll pay a subscription after that. That's where my thought's at, so that people can come in whenever they like. I don't want to start like, oh, the next course starts in 6 weeks. I want people to come in, like what's the point in having an online course if you don't just let people digest it at their own pace, right? Like how they want. But I think that's how it's going to look like. There'll be a fee to come in, and then an ongoing fee like after a certain period of time if you want to maintain access to that. And the content will continue to grow in the form of like at the minimum weekly calls and monthly webinars. But that's where I'm at. Mate, we need to talk about actually collaborating a little bit on, the majority of my clients are other dog trainers. And within that, I think there's heaps of cause to have, like a marketing section and stuff like that. So really me and you need to lock heads about how to do something like that.
100%. I'll do that. When you get your group up and running, I'll be happy to jump in on a call and just do a little mini presentation. That would suit me, I'm sure.
Amazing.
That'd be really good. And yeah, obviously we've spoken about your program in private. You've given me access. What I'll say to anyone listening to this, whatever Pat's thinking about charging, it's far too cheap. So if you do have an opportunity to go on this course, I guarantee you'll get so much more out of it than Pat has the bottle to pay for. So a bit of a backhanded compliment, but yeah, if you're listening, get on it. It'll be a great resource to upskill yourself. So Pat, I've got to shoot now because I've got a training group. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
And I will see you in September as well.
Yeah, coming to Australia, mate. I'm excited to have you out here. It's going to be an awesome time.
I know. I'm looking forward to seeing your place. I'm looking forward to... I've been a couple of times before, but it was actually to play rugby.
Oh, really?
And the last time I went was 2016 on tour. I actually lived up in do you know Toowoomba?
Yeah.
I lived very close to there for like a year, pretty much like out in the sticks, playing for like a country team. A friend of mine from school was like, hey, I've just signed for this team out there. It's pretty cool. There's a pub, like we get on the piss, we play, we work in a couple of the local bars. And I was like, yeah, sounds good. So I went out there for 11 months.
I did not know that. That's cool, man. I had no idea. Have you been here to Sydney?
Yeah, we went we went back on tour in 2016. I was playing for England universities in like the University World Cup. So we went there. Where are West Tigers based? Are they Sydney?
No, that's they're over the hill. Like literally 400. The stadium's 400 meters that way.
Oh yeah, there you go. So we were there. We were pretty much around there.
Yeah, right.
You Leichhardt, yeah?
Yeah. Leichhardt Oval is just up at 400 meters a stretch. It's a kilometer that way. Yeah, this is where I grew up. I was a Tigers fan my whole life.
Oh really?
Yeah.
There you go. So yeah, looking forward to coming back. The last time I went, 2016, I said I ain't doing that flight again. I ain't doing that traveling again. Fuck that. 28 hours. But here we go. It was presented and I thought, yep, that would be good. Good to meet you in person. Good to see your place.
Yeah, cool, man. I'm excited. It'll be a good time having you out here. And I think, there's plenty of people that will get a fucking ton from what you've got to offer. So I'm excited.
Guys, if you enjoyed this type of video, then you're in luck because I also had chance to sit down with the man that is widely regarded as the greatest dog trainer of all time, Michael Ellis, who delivered some information about dog reactivity that is guaranteed to blow your mind. So click this video right here, sit down and get ready to have your mind changed about dog training forever.